What if I told you there's a money trail from Minnesota straight through the Department of Justice and back to the Obama administration? A system designed to move your tax dollars to political allies while freezing out anyone who didn't play ball. Whistleblowers tried to sound the alarm. They were ignored. The DNC knew about fraud so massive it should have ended careers, and they promoted the guy overseeing it to the national ticket anyway. Now Congress is pulling the receipts, and the names at the center of the web are the ones that you already know. So here's what's on the line. We're not talking about a local scandal in one state. We're talking about a system, an architecture built to funnel settlement money, federal grants, and taxpayer funds, that's your money, to politically connected law firms and organizations while deliberately cutting out anyone on the wrong side of the agenda. At the center of this sits Tony West, Kamala Harris's own brother-in-law, who ran the DOJ's civil division under Barack Hussein Obama. Insiders say that West's team structured settlement terms so narrowly that only their allies could benefit. Conservative groups, ineligible by design. Now fast forward to Minnesota. Billions in fraud, wire transfers traced overseas, including to China. And state employees who flagged it directly to the Harris campaign during the 2024 election. You see, they knew, but they ignored it anyway. And Tim Walz, the governor who oversaw this disaster, became vice presidential nominee anyway. And breaking right now as we watch this financial house of cards collapse, there's never been a more important time to ask yourself, what happens when the system stops working for you? When billions vanish and nobody's held accountable? You can't rely on the same people who created the mess to protect your family, and that's why I trust My Patriot Supply. This Christmas, they're running a buy one, gift two special buy one emergency gift kit. Get two absolutely free. Grab a 4-week supply for yourself, and they'll throw in 2 1-week kits, perfect for gifting. When fraud runs this deep, and the money trail leads this high, self-reliance is not optional, it's survival. So head to preparewithgary.com right now. The deal ends when the holiday season is over. So preparewithgary.com. Don't wait for the next shoe to drop. Now here's where it gets worse. Congressman James Comer has officially requested suspicious activity reports from the Treasury Department. His oversight committee is following the money, bank records, wire transfers, shell entities. Any cover-up by the Walz administration, he says, will be exposed. And the connections keep on piling up. Tim Walz visited China roughly 30 times. Wire transfers from Minnesota fraud cases allegedly went overseas, including to China. Commentators are openly asking how this level of fraud happens without federal blindness or cooperation. The DOJ settlement machine is back in the crosshairs, accused of turning legal penalties into political slush funds. Let's go to James Comer now. He posted this just 7 hours ago. Says they're examining the extensive taxpayer fraud that's uncovered in Minnesota, following the money, and just requested all relevant suspicious activity reports. Here he is on Fox talking about it.
Other states that come along.
That's the attitude that so many
That includes our next guest, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. Chairman, thanks so much for joining us. I do appreciate it. I'm glad to see you taking action. The amount of things that are coming across your desk in the first year is just unbelievable to me of this congressional, 2-year term. But tell us what you're seeing in Minnesota, what you plan to do about it.
Well, first of all, for Tim Walz to say he didn't think it reached the billions category, I'm pretty confident it did exceed $1 billion. But let's say it's hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the attitude that so many Democrats I see in Congress and so many Democrats who occupy the governor's offices around the United States. They just don't care about the taxpayer dollars. They don't have any sympathy for the hardworking taxpayers who work hard and send their tax dollars to their state capital or to Washington, D.C. But what we've got in this investigation, Jason, is we've got something that is really helpful in congressional investigations, and that's credible whistleblowers. We're bringing in the state employees who first blew the whistle that there was fraud in Minnesota. And what we're learning is that they've been trying to warn Keith Ellison, the attorney general, and Tim Walz, the governor, for years not weeks, not months, but years about the ongoing fraudulent activity from this massive Somali population of Minnesota. And neither Waltz nor Ellison wanted to do anything about it for political reasons, because this has become a major base for the Democrat Party in Minnesota. So thankfully, we've had some state employees who have come forward. We're going to bring them in and start interviewing and deposing them. Hopefully, we'll get some information on some bank accounts that I can subpoena, and then we'll follow the money and figure out how much money was stolen and who played a part in that.
Yeah, most people don't realize you actually have a banking background, so numbers are not difficult for you like they are Tim Walz. So I think that will play a key difference. And these whistleblowers are key here. In terms of where you go next, you do the interviews. Do you expect to have public hearings on this? Where does this ultimately go?
Well, we may have hearings, but we've been doing a lot of depositions and transcribed interviews, and I think you would agree, Jason, those just are so much more efficient than public hearings. But I would assume at some point we will have public hearings because the American people are very interested in this. I've heard more people comment on this investigation than any we've done in a long time because it's such a massive amount of money. If you're talking $2 or $3 billion from social programs in the state of Minnesota, which isn't a very big state, that's a significant percentage of their whole budget for social programs. And,
Oh, man. Here, let's go to Minnesota now. Prime example of the billions of dollars in fraud happening in Minnesota. This is one of the hundreds of daycares receiving millions of dollars from the government. This daycare can't even spell learning right and received $1.9 million tax exempt.
There's no windows, no. Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. If you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday, children should be in here, and this place is licensed for 99 children, and this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing, and like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right. Here in Minnesota,
they can't even spell learning right. Okay, you want to follow the money, the fraud pyramid? They're right. Give this man a listen. His breakdown spot on. President Trump was right all along. All roads lead right back to Obama, who appointed Kamala Harris' brother, Tony West. Let's listen.
Together with the fraud that we're... Okay, I hope you're ready for this video. This won't be a short one. I'm going to tie in exactly how I believe Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, Tony West, Kamala Harris. All of these people are linked together with the fraud that we're seeing unfold right now. And I'm going to explain to you how it is. See, it starts way back when Barack Obama was president. When he was president, he was in charge of appointing somebody to the Department of Justice Civil Division. It's Tony West. And you say, well, who's Tony West? It's Kamala Harris's brother-in-law. So he appoints Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, Tony West, but not only does he do that, but he removes the restriction that Congress has to approve any settlement over $100,000. See, Congress used to have to approve that. Once Barack took away that restraint, DOJ can sue for anything with nobody's approval. They could sue for a gazillion dollars, and Congress doesn't have to approve for a settlement. Why is the settlement important? Because in a settlement, you don't have to disclose all the law firms involved. You just settle. Now, people complained when Tony West was settling all of these cases. They were all minority-based cases. People suing the Justice Department for minority-based this, minority-based that. The Justice Department, what they would do because of Tony West is settle. 50 million, 40 million, a billion, nobody knew because they wouldn't release it because Barack Obama already signed off saying, you don't got to tell nobody. So Kamala Harris's brother-in-law was taking all of this money, giving it to all of these law firms. Now, you know, Barack, he's an attorney. Michelle Obama, she's an attorney. So all of these attorneys out there were getting all of this money from the DOJ now, being fed and loving it. Tony West, another attorney, he's now the head of Uber. That's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later. He's the head of Uber legal department. But now all of these attorneys are eating right now. Nobody knows how much money is going on. Kind of like with BLM, when people were donating all this money to BLM, but BLM wasn't giving money to the people who it was intended for. That's what these law firms were doing. They were keeping the funds. So people were suing the Justice Department on behalf of minorities. Minorities weren't getting the money, though. The law firms were getting the money. So after they saw how this scheme was working, now you got Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, Michelle Obama. What was Michelle Obama big for? We got to feed all these kids. This is about nutrition. We got to make sure every kid has a meal. That was Michelle Obama. Ilhan Omar says, oh, we could do that in Minnesota. I'll start a whole new program. So now she's using all of the legalese from Michelle Obama, go to Minnesota. They create this feeding our future, no kid starves thing. And where did all the money end up? In Kenya, China, Somalia. Who's linked to Kenya? Barack Obama. Kenyan relatives. Who's in China? Tim Walz. He has all these Chinese connections. All the banks in China know who Tim Walz is. He was a big politician. He's got connections over there. So when it came time for the Democrats to choose, after Biden says, I can't do this, they chose Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris linked in with who? The DOJ already, Tony West. He already went to Uber. But guess who's also they're linked in with? Tim Walz in Minnesota through Ilhan Omar. So now you got all of these people who are all linked together, already got previous dealings with each other. The Democrats are like, why don't we run a primary? Barack is like, we're not running a primary. We're going to appoint Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, you're going to choose Tim Walz. Everybody's like, who the hell's Tim Walz? See, Tim Walz has already been deep in it with Ilhan Omar and Michelle Obama's food programs. They've already been deep in scamming already. So they need to choose somebody that can keep it rolling. You can't choose an outside Democrat. You can't choose a Pete Buttigieg or anybody like that because they're going to be like, what the hell is all this going on? Now, when Trump finally won and he came in and he says, we're cleaning this all up, everybody started resigning. The head of Social Security office resigning. All of these people started resigning because they knew the jig was up. All of this money that they were putting up for minorities and putting up for illegals, it was all just being swindled. Nobody was being taken care of. All these cities are going bankrupt right now because the feds weren't funneling this money to it. The states was like, well, we'll fund and you guys reimburse us. And the feds were like, okay, $9 billion is flowing out of this country into over other banks. Now, if any bank here in America was like, we're getting billions and billions of dollars put into our banking system, what the hell is going on? But if you're doing it in China, you're doing it in Kenya, you're doing it in Somalia, you're doing it in Sweden, you're doing it in the Cayman Islands, you're putting this money all over the place. American banks don't know what's up. You can even put it in banks over in Ukraine. Ukraine was kind of getting money on. It's like, hey, we'll help you guys move the money. As long as, we got our man Zelensky in power, we will help you move the money. Everything was happening right in front of everybody's faces. Now they want to claim, oh, it's not as big as what it is. I did a story about this 2 years ago, talking about Tim Walz and Tony West and all of this fraud. 2 years ago, I was talking about it. It's now 2025, and people are finally saying, hey, Tim Walz is involved in fraud. I said it 2 years ago. I said, this dude is in bed with Tony West. Tony West was running fraud at the DOJ. Everybody was talking about investigating Tony West, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. When Trump won, it disappeared. Like, what happened? Were we investigating this guy or what? He was the one scamming the DOJ. He was using minorities to fund all of these law firms who were in turn giving money to Kamala Harris, an attorney, Michelle Obama, attorney. Barack Obama, attorney. Tony West, attorney. So all of our tax dollars are flowing to all these attorneys. Where's the money at? And once Barack Obama already knew Obamacare was a scam from the get-go, he was like, this is going to be too easy. We've got illegals coming in from Somalia, illegals coming in from all over the world. We can have them apply for and use Medicaid, Medicare, all of these services, creating dummy companies and everything else to make sure we trap the tax dollars in our scheme. We don't let the Americans into the scheme. We do the scheme with the people coming into the country that don't know how our laws work. We're the attorneys here. We just need a bunch of patsies. So all of these people in the Somalian community has no idea they were being played. You guys are being used. You got autistic kids, you got hungry kids, you need housing, you need lodging. All of these people were being used by a group of attorneys who had this grand scheme on how to get tax dollars under everybody's noses using programs and NGOs. I'm telling you, this goes way deeper than what a lot of people think. Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar are not masterminds. This was a mastermind affair. This right here started at the very, very top a long time ago, knowing we could get tax dollars out of these people if we play by the rules. The only way they could play by the rules is if they got people that didn't really know the rules. You need people who think this is on the up and up, but you're using scams to get there. You're using a collection of people who know exactly how to work through the loopholes. You're getting kickbacks. So a lot of politicians were getting kickbacks. A lot of agencies out there are getting kickbacks. You can't tell me these people saw all that money come through and they didn't know the wiser. You can't tell me that. These are intelligent people with degrees, with experiences in law, with experience in politics, experience in government agencies. And you telling me a group of Somali pirates who probably didn't even have high school educations tricked everybody out of $9 billion? I'm not buying it. Now,
talk about laying it out. Oh, of course, the Kamala Harris campaign, they knew what was going on, and they didn't care.
They said there's a group of state employees in Minnesota who said that they flagged this for Kamala Harris's campaign in the DNC when she tapped Tim Walz. And they said nothing about it. And there's a reason why Brooke Rollins yesterday in the cabinet meeting said that she's going after other blue states who are refusing to turn over SNAP data. It is because this is not just a Minnesota problem. This is a California problem. This is a New York problem. Our taxpayer funds are being exploited and abused, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
And, you know, at the heart of each of those
And we are. The Somalis have figured out exactly the perfect plan as how to scam Minnesota taxpayers out of their money. Well, the last guy we just saw says they were just basically patsies being told what to do. Other people collecting the cash. I mean, you have to get hundreds, if not thousands of people to come in and sign up. And these are just, people from Somalia. They don't know any better. Oh, roll out the red carpet. We're in America now. And you have these people pulling their strings. So I think the last guy really nailed it. This woman thinks it's the Somalians. Well, no, it goes all the way back to Barack, clearly.
She cannot. Here in Minnesota, a local realtor reached out to me to tell me about another way that Somalians are scamming Minnesotans out of their taxpayer dollars. In her community alone, Somalians have bought up over 455 homes. They buy these homes, claiming they're turning these homes into home health care centers. She says the way we know Somalians have bought these homes is because all of a sudden, extremely nice cars start showing up. Mercedes, BMWs, the nicest cars are parked in the driveway. And she said, by law, the state will not come out and inspect these homes and make sure these homes even have clients living in these homes. She also said, as a realtor, she cannot disclose to people wanting to buy homes in this neighborhood that Somalians have bought that home and they're using that as a home health care center. She said these homes can even take people in who've just been released from jail, and the neighborhood does not need to know about this. But she says many of these homes do not even have clients in them. But the state is writing them checks every month for the clients that the Somalians say are in these homes. And these Somalians are making millions of dollars off of these homes every year. The Somalians have figured out exactly the perfect plan as to how to scam Minnesota taxpayers out of their money.
So, okay, yeah, I get what she's saying. That's a totally different level of scam. Wire transfers to China. Who do we know that visited China at least 30 times? Tim Walz. Wire transfers to China and East Africa. Tim Walz is also guilty of being the last Chinese pawn. China loves what happens in Minnesota. So, here's the big picture that's forming right now. Remove oversight at DOJ, structure settlements towards reward to reward allies, ignore whistleblowers when they scream about it, elevate compromised officials to national office, then dare the public to connect the dots. But the dots are connecting themselves right now. Subpoenas are flying, bank records are being pulled, and the same people who thought they'd never be held accountable are watching their paper trail come alive. The era of polite denial is over because this is a reckoning. Now, here's why every American should care about this story. This is not just about the state of Minnesota. It's not just about Tim Walz. This is about a system designed from the inside to move your money to their friends while making sure you never find out. Tony West at DOJ, Tim Walz, Minnesota, Kamala Harris on the ticket, the same circles, the same protections, the same silence when whistleblowers try to speak up. And now the receipts are coming out, wire transfers, treasury reports, oversight demands. They cannot ignore anymore. The question isn't whether this happened. The evidence says it did. The question is whether anyone will actually be held accountable or whether the machine protects its own one more time. So here's my question for you in the comments. Do you believe that DOJ was weaponized to protect their political allies? Yes or no? Sound off in the comments. And don't forget to check out the Next News merch shop. It's linked below.